Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, digital transformation champions, and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. Be sure to subscribe to JSB Talks Digital on iTunes or Spotify. I promise you the 20 minutes you invest each week with me for absolutely free will take your digital and social media knowledge to new levels. In this episode, number 89, I discuss the future of radio and the role digital plays in its evolution. This show was recorded at the recent Radio Days Ireland conference in Dublin, where I also made a presentation on digital insights for radio. Coming up in today's show, in social media news, Facebook removes 20 unhelpful ad metrics. Social network Vero crashes with global downloads soaring. And Facebook local app rolls out in the UK and Ireland. I interview Colm Hayes, Director of Programming at Radio Nova. In shoutouts, 3 nuggets of gold advice for radio stations from the experts. Ask JSB. In JSB's column, my takeaways from the Radio Days Conference Ireland 2018, and find out what social media tool saved my working week.
Social media news.
Facebook seems to be going through a bit of a transformation lately with all its updates. Most recently, it announced it's removing 20 what they describe as unhelpful metrics in Ads Manager. Facebook will start to label some of its metrics in Ads Manager, providing more clarity on how they should be calculated. The new labels displaying whether a metric is estimated or in development will now appear as top tips as part of the Ads Manager reporting table, but also in the customized column selector. The changes are due to come into place in July, after marketers have described some of those metrics as redundant, outdated, not actionable, or infrequently used. Some of the metrics being removed include actions, people taking action and cost per any action, amount spent today, social reach, social impressions, social clicks, and unique social clicks. Be sure to jump over to the blog post associated with this podcast to read the full list of metrics being removed. Relatively new social network Vero promises it's going to be different to Facebook and Instagram. It was co-founded in 2015 by Lebanese billionaire Ayman Harari and is differentiating itself from other social networks. The app, which is available on iPhone and Android, has been so widely downloaded around the world this week that it's led to the app crashing. The app allows users to share movies, music, links, places, and photos, and promises a true social experience that mirrors real life. Founders say, "We created a social network that lets you be yourself, hence the name Vero, meaning truth." I have downloaded Vero. I've set up my profile, but I couldn't find anyone I knew, so I just left. There just isn't enough time in my day for another social network. But have you joined it? Let me know and also tell me what you think. The Facebook Local app has rolled out in Ireland and the UK. Facebook Local serves up recommendations for bars, restaurants, and nearby attractions, as well as showing you where your mates are headed so you don't get FOMO. Facebook Local uses your location to show you what's going on nearby, from places to eat to gigs and concerts. There are 3 icons at the bottom: the home page, the Discover section, and a calendar tab. The app opens on your home feed, where you can find shortcuts to nearby bars, cafes, restaurants, and attractions, along with where your friends you follow are going.
Interview.
In this episode, I interview Colm Hayes from Radio Nova. As Director of Programming, Colm has responsibility for developing on-air and online content. Speaking to me at the Radio Days conference, he said the evolution of radio is nothing new. However, he added, stations need to embrace the world of digital or be left behind.
JSB talks digital.
I'm joined at the Radio Days conference here in the Gibson Hotel by Colm Hayes from Radio Nova. He is the Programme Director. Now, Colm, lots of interesting insights on the current state of radio, the future of radio, but I want to know, what's your perspective on digital and radio?
It's not just a buzzword now, isn't it? Digital. Everything is digital. I'm old enough in radio to remember when the buzzword was stereo, and that was just going to destroy the radio industry. And digital now. And I think what's wrong with programmers are sometimes is they see two different worlds, that there's a radio world and there's this huge beast called digital that is going to suck all our listeners away, while in fact they live very comfortably together. And if we can really understand that for me, like my daughter's 18, she doesn't know how to tune a radio in, but she knows radioing and she finds it digitally. She finds stuff on Facebook, she finds the app on the phone or whatever. Digital is the portal now to get people in to listen to radio. That's the front door now. The back door is how your mother tunes it in, but the front door is digital. It's that new world. It's Twitter. So we need to embrace that completely, as opposed to think it's the crazy enemy. It's going to become our best friend. And, you know, some people are afraid, and with so many sessions inside saying Facebook are going to eat us up and Amazon are going to eat us up, they're not going to eat us up at all. They realise how important we are, and we realise how important they are. The problem at the moment is that hipster advertisers think that every product needs to have video content. It doesn't have to have all video content. Radio is still really crazy important. And when they realise, A, that coffee is too expensive, B, their trousers are too short, and C, everything doesn't have to have video content, I think people will move back and embrace radio a little bit more. We're not going to die. I've been at convention since the 80s saying this is probably the last year of radio, and we're still here. The only difference is my hair.
So you have been around radio a long time, and I'm glad you said that, and I'm just repeating what you said. But Christian O'Connell from formerly Absolute Radio put it very nicely when he said that radio is the original social network. It's where people connect with each other on a human level.
Look, Christian was saying, and there was somebody else saying how they were amazed about the usage that the Irish still have for radio. And the reason being is that we're storytellers, and that's what we love. We love telling each other stories. Now, Facebook originally was your mother looking out the window and seeing what the neighbours were doing next door. And when your neighbours were going on holidays, they went, they're always going on holidays. You see your friends on Facebook doing exactly the same. So it's not a new technology. It's not new. It's just the way we used to live on a different platform, in a different format. And it's we love storytelling in Ireland. As you know, somebody said to me earlier on, why are all the events going on so long today? And I said, it's because you've got radio people. They never stop talking. And we won't. And radio is that moment, that place, that for the world you can come into, where you can find the stories and you can engage with them, because listeners can ring in, listeners can give out to me, they can text me. Okay, now they can tweet, Facebook and Instagram, but that's just a different format to texting. That's a different format to actually, years ago, just knocking at the door or sending in a letter and saying, Colm Hayes, I wish you'd die. Now they just do it on Twitter.
Now, I come from the world of radio, and my radio station was Highland Radio up in Donegal. So, great station. Yeah. And, the business of radio is all about the geographic boundary and where you get your licence for. But are you not excited about the potential new listeners that you can get online that are beyond your licence boundary?
Yeah, I am, but the advertisers aren't. And the salespeople aren't. Well, I can't sell anything to them. Okay, so we've got 3,000 people listening in Shanghai. What can I sell them? No, but I think it is great. And again, it's just, the world is bigger. And when the world gets bigger, your world gets smaller. And, people start, and I've always said this as well, and you'll see it happening when there's a huge international event. Local radio does really, really well, because people get fed up with the international event because they can't do anything about it. So they go back to talking about, the traffic lights on the main street. We have, once the world gets too big, too crazy and too dangerous, cave mentality makes us come back inside. Somebody said, Christian actually said it after the Manchester Arena bombing. He wanted to stay at home, close the door, be with his family and just play board games, because that's what we do. We retreat retreat. Local radio allows us retreat because we can retreat into local radio.
Now, at Radio Nova, you guys have been experimenting and producing new content for On Air. But the other great thing that you guys have been doing, and in my world of training people digital, is that I always say radio people are 90% there. Guys, you're storytellers, you know how to create content, you know what a hook is, and you know how to engage an audience. You've also invested in training your people and even bringing new people on.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. It's funny, again, we're talking about raw talent, and I think raw talent is brilliant because raw talent means, they'll do anything. You don't know what they're going to do next. If you have talent and they've been in the business 30 or 40 years, they're sort of in a set way. And I know I haven't been that long in the business, but I always think I'm not in that set way. I'm always looking for some new way of creating radio, some new way of engaging the audience. And digital has allowed us to do that in social media, in doing our little bits and pieces on Facebook. So I embrace that. I'm not afraid of that. It's just a new way of us still getting the same message out, which is telling stories which are engaging for people to listen to. And the better we tell stories, the more people listen, and the more my people in the other room can sell advertising for. I don't know their names. They're in sales. Amazing.
And Helen Bowden put it so well. She goes, you guys are good at what you do. That doesn't have to change. You just have to discover how you can leverage online platforms. And I think that was kind of reassuring. Maybe people needed to hear that today.
Yeah, look at the movies. I mean, whatever they do, and the biggest sci-fi movies, and the biggest CGI, and the biggest special effects, all of that going on, and you think, wow, this is amazing. What is this about? Good versus evil. That's what the Bible was about. So it's the same story. It's just how you tell it, and how you can make it really, really engaging.
Okay, Colm Hayes, always a pleasure. Thank you for talking to me on JSB Talks Digital.
Shoutouts.
In this part of the show, I give shoutouts to brands, organisations or individuals whose work online is remarkable and worth talking about. In this episode, I'm sharing top tips from the experts for radio stations. Now, all of these experts spoke at the Radio Days conference.
1.
Head of RTE 2FM and co-founder and shareholder of iRadio and KCLR 96 FM, Dan Healy joined a panel of radio icons on day one of the Radio Days conference. Making new waves in 2FM and increasing listenership, Dan was forthright with his contributions on the future of radio. He says, we know how to monetize content on FM radio. In fact, we're doing it every 15 minutes. People live their lives through radio in Ireland, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Dan doesn't believe people will choose social media over radio, with people in Ireland spending 134 minutes per day listening to radio versus 66 minutes on social. He says radio stations must harness their position and their power to be the mirror image of their audience's lives.
2.
We should be aiming for authentic radio, says Christian O'Connell, host of The Breakfast Show on Absolute Radio in the UK. Sending out a clear message to presenters and producers, Christian appealed for more realness in a world where fake is growing. He says, stay curious about the world, tell authentic stories, listen to your listeners, and be real. Authenticity is the big currency right now for radio stations. We are all a work in progress, and presenters must evolve as professionals just as they evolve as people.
3.
Talking about building a successful breakfast show, Adam Smith, BBC editor, says collaboration is key in the world of digital. Admitting that breakfast is the best part of the schedule and the most difficult, he says that if listeners and stations work together, they can help each other tell relevant stories. It has to be about content. It has to have depth to it. Stations have to ask themselves, how can we be conversational, informal, and also useful? You can actually watch this segment on how to make a brilliant breakfast show on the blog post associated with this podcast over at digitaltraining.ie. What do radio stations need to know about digital? Well, I spoke at the Radio Days conference on day 2 about digital insights for radio. You can catch the segment on the blog post associated with the podcast because it's been periscoped. Don't forget, if you have a burning social media or digital marketing question, simply click on digitaltraininginstitute.ie/askjsb and leave me a voicemail. You can also send your question to any of our social networks.
JSB's column.
In today's JSB column, I'm sharing my top takeaways from Radio Days Ireland Conference 2018. And if you are a radio station in need of a digital strategy, then get in touch. Simply email joanne@digitaltraining.ie.
JSB Talks Digital.
Hello and welcome to the Gibson Hotel in Dublin. I'm here at the Radio Days conference. It's almost over 2 amazing days of learning about the future of radio, and I guess everybody wondering, is the future of radio assured? Now, I've been listening to the panel discussions, the questions from the audience, and also to the experts throughout the 2 days, and I think there's a few takeaways that we can all learn from. Number one, that standing still means that you're going to go backwards. Anybody who doesn't evolve is going to become the blockbusters of their industry. You're going to be irrelevant and you're going to be gone. A lot of conversation about digital and radio advertising versus digital advertising. Did you know in Ireland the radio advertising industry is worth €133 million? That's a significant chunk. In 2018, it's predicted that that revenue growth will be stable. It won't grow, it won't go down. But in actual fact, what is the role of digital in that budget? Well, suffice to say is that big brands are investing in digital. In the UK, this year alone, a digital advertising investment is going to grow by between 20 and 30%. I don't have the Irish figures, I'm afraid. But there were a few key takeaways that we can all learn from, is that when we want to evolve and if we want to embrace the world of digital, we have to understand our audiences. It's not enough just to, I guess, for the radio sector to transfer all their on-air content to online. That's not going to work. We know that in Ireland, 83% of people are listening to radio every single day of the week. This is unrivaled right across Europe. Absolutely amazing figures. But there is a danger that that young demographic of 18 to 24-year-olds have not grown up with radio. And so they are not as convinced as everybody else. So what you've got to do is, I think you've got to make stars of the presenters that are currently working in radio. And we've seen the case study with Casey Neistat. I said it during my session a little bit earlier on. CNN bought him for $25 million a year and a half ago, and just a couple of weeks ago, they parted ways. You cannot just buy an online audience and expect them to transfer to your brand. It's not going to work. What we've got to do is we've got to understand our own audience, be authentic, talk to them in our own voice, and then they will migrate. We've also got to listen to the data and the insights. A lot of discussion around data and insights and how true is the data. Now, we know the radio sector in Ireland is adjudicated by JNLR, Joint National Listenership Radio Figures. And I just don't think that that's the total story, if I'm honest. And I said as much during my session. I think that there's a combined metrics that matter when it comes to radio. And I think that there's not enough investigation being given to how many people are listening online, streaming, and through apps. So I think that JNLR need to evolve and adapt also in the digital age. The other thing to say is that the social networks, they're not regulated like radio is. And that also was a cause for concern. You know, I started off in broadcast journalism, and I know the rules around what I can say, making sure that everything I said was fact. But when it comes to the social networks, I mean, 2016 was the era of fake news, filter bubbles and echo chambers. And for the first time ever, unfortunately, in 2018, Edelman are saying that trust in the media is at an all-time low. The reason for this, I suspect, is because of social media. In Ireland, 52% of people are getting their news from social media, so they're not tuning into a TV show, to the TV news, to radio or to print. They're actually going on social and they're getting their news there. I think it's an opportunity for radio, if I'm honest. I mean, these guys are the guardians of trust. They're the guardians of news, and it is their role to protect the truth. And I think stepping in and being more collaborative with the social networks and having a better news presence online is really, really important. You know, when I worked in radio, 4 sentences was a news story and 40 seconds was a news report. That's not going to cut it online. You need to extend your news, bring people behind the scenes, give them something different that you're not giving them in your radio station or in any other traditional media publication. Lots and lots of opportunities from radio. I just think that there's fear here, and I think everybody has a fear when it comes to digital. You know, I'm not normal. Well, I'm normal, but you know what I mean? I'm not normal because my world revolves around digital, and I guess I understand it. But what people are doing in their own businesses every day, they understand the customer, they have good product, they have good service. Radio stations know their craft. I mean, they are filled with content creators, with storytellers, with journalists, with presenters, with idols, with potential influencers, and they're probably just not leveraging it. Another thing that we learned is that the radio sector hasn't been invested in. It has been invested in during the recession. Again, that's something that other brands and businesses can probably identify with. Now's the time to make that investment. Now's the time where you can fast forward your digital capabilities, your digital agility, and your digital output. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. We heard from Glenn Mulcahy. I interviewed him for the podcast on my blog also. Glenn used to work in RTE, and they were investing in editing software for €80,000, investing hundreds of thousands of euros in cameras, high broadcast quality, surround sound, etc., high definition. I'm broadcasting from Dublin here on my smartphone, and Mojo, mobile journalism, is a thing. There's a movie coming out later this year, and by a producer and director who actually filmed the whole thing on a smartphone. And I think people need to wake up to the capabilities within a smartphone. We pick up our smartphone 200 times a day, and I tell you, it's not to make phone calls. It's to take advantage of the capabilities that is within a mobile phone. Like, did you know there are about 2,500 patents within an iPhone alone? You have some piece of technology in your pocket. Marie Claire just actually gave me a new device, and I know she's watching right now. I've got, and I don't know what it's called, she'll have to tell me, but I tell you, my tripod and my new device, my arm is killing me, so apologies, I had to move over. A final takeaway then from radio days is that repurposing content is something that we should all be doing. Not just repurposing for the sake of it, but understanding what your audiences want. If you have somebody who wants to tune into short video on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram for 40 to 60 seconds, give it to them, but don't start and end the story there, my friends. In the business of storytelling, there's always a next chapter. You should be using and leveraging the social networks to bring them to the long form piece of content that you have. That could be on your website, on your blog, or on your YouTube channel. Long form content is not dead by absolutely no means. So let's all get digitally agile. Let's not fear the technology. Let's not fear change. Yes, as humans, we don't like change, but with change comes opportunities. Big well done to everyone who organised this event. Teresa from Learning Waves, I'll hopefully get her an interview offer as well. And also the Independent Broadcasting Authority of Ireland. Some amazing speakers, over 40 in total over the 2 days, over 200 delegates. And even though this is a radio event, I think that people can learn a lot from evolving and making themselves relevant in the digital age. I will have all the interviews on my YouTube channel, and of course the little snackable bites for you guys across social as well.
Social media tool of the week.
The tool that saved my working week this week is Adobe Premiere Clip. Adobe Premiere Clip is Adobe's powerful mobile video editing app. You can create quick video edits on the fly with a range of editing options. It's of course fully compatible with Adobe's other apps and programs. Just hit the plus icon in the bottom right corner to start a new edit. It's then a matter of importing video from your iPhone or producing the material live from the camera on your phone. With all of your footage in place, you can either go hands-on with your own edit, or you can have the app create one of the automatic features. Download Adobe Premiere Clip now from the App Store. It's available on iOS and Android for absolutely free. Thank you so much for tuning into episode 89 of JSB Talks Digital, coming to you from Dublin this week. As always, I have everything discussed on today's show on my award-winning blog at digitaltraining.ie. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify. You'll also find us on Libsyn, Stitcher, or on SoundCloud. Please send me your questions and your suggestions for topic ideas on social. As always, I'm looking for new problems to solve on your behalf. You can tweet me to a Tweets by JSB, post a comment on our Facebook page, Digital Training Institute. You can also snap me to JSB Snaps, or why not send a boomerang on Instagram to JSB Grams. I'm Joanne Sweeney Burke. This is JSB Talks Digital. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
JSB Talks Digital.